Hey there, my name is Timothy Roberts, and in this video I want to talk about an update I am making to my Foundation Series cymbals. Now, fairly recently I posted a couple videos about this new Foundation Series cymbals that I made in collaboration with the great drummer Jonathan Green. He came to me and had this idea for a type of cymbal that was right up his alley, the kind of sound he had in his head, and he had been going through some artistic changes and changes in his palette that he was looking for. And so we spent many months together prototyping cymbals, tweaking cymbals, and he landed with a set of cymbals that he really loved, and I turned it into a series that I call the Foundation. It was actually more of a shifting of a series I had before called the Duco. And so I took that Duco series and sort of redesigned it and launched it as the Foundation, in part with the collaboration with Jonathan. And I've really loved those sounds, and I've known since the beginning that they needed a little tweak and needed a little update, or really just needed to be expanded a little bit to include some offshoots of the sound and invite in a more holistic approach to this cymbal sound, which in essence is versatile, it's dry, it's earthy, but there are varying degrees of those traits that I want the Foundation series to carry. And so I'm here to officially announce those updates and run you through more specifics on the Foundation series and specifics of what you'll be able to find moving forward within this cymbal line. So first off, you'll probably know if you've checked out the other videos of the cymbals that have a fully unlathed top surface. Those ones have a really super smoky, dark stick definition, very, very dry. The crash is very muted and short, so it kind of hits and gets out of the way. And so basically I've taken that and I've made some adjustments to it to include a sound that opens up a little bit more, a sound that has a bit more airiness to it while still being in that dry, earthy zone. So this one right here is an example of that. I'm gonna put it up close to the camera and you'll be able to see that there is some of that unlathed crust still underneath there. It's still poking through the lathing, but I've gone through and I've done what's called a scratch pass, and I've done a little bit of pin lathing. And it just cuts away just enough of that dark crust to allow in a little bit more shimmer. And this cymbal in particular started out as one of those fully crusted Foundation rides. It had that really, really dry thing going on. And after the crust has been removed, there's a lot more brightness, or at least a little bit more brightness cutting through while still maintaining the dark character that it has. Then there's the extent that goes a little bit farther, where we're actually getting into lathing these a little bit more, actually getting into the raw bronze a bit more than just a scratch surface, and that's what I have right here. So this is a Foundation rye where there still is some crust there, and it's still just scratching the surface on some parts, but there is deeper lathe grooves that really get into the metal more and open up even more shimmer and more brightness. So we're going to basically be adding that to the lexicon, adding these sounds to the catalog of this Foundation series, so you can have super dark, super dry, fully crusted cymbals. Then you can have partially lathed and then more deeply lathed sounds, but they're all going to stay within that zone of dry, earthy, warm, versatile, and a little bit more articulate. Now the second thing I want to run through is the actual alloy that these are made of. I've hinted at this and talked about this in the other Foundation series cymbal videos, but I'm using two different kinds of blanks to make this series. I'm using Canadian bronze and I'm using Brazilian bronze. As I've talked about before, the Canadian bronze has a very different vibe from what I'm used to with the Brazilian stuff that I've been using for years now. It has a much more clean sound, a much more pristine sound, and it's much easier to actually get a shape into it because they come with a process called bumping, so they're already in a pretty low shape, so I can take a cymbal and get a working profile within 30 minutes on some of these Canadian bronze blanks. Within that, there's the drawback of being able to actually, it takes a little bit more work to imbue the metal with grit, complexity, and funkiness. Its natural state wants to be clean and pristine. And so I'm having to think differently than I normally have to think with Brazilian bronze, because Brazilian bronze has all of that funky, gritty, complex stuff built into the material itself. And so that brings up the next point of these foundations and how they will differ. And another element to throw into the mix, which is the blank that's used. When I have a Brazilian blank and I make a foundation ride, I can make a fully crusted Turk ride like this one, top and bottom, no lathing whatsoever on it. And it will have so much more life, nuance, high end, and a crash that you'll be surprised to hear when I show you in just a minute the demos of all these things. It really will have quite a bit of life to it. So that's an awesome thing about the Brazilian stuff, is that it allows me to be more on the Turk side in that there's more of a crust, an oxide crust that stays on the cymbal, and getting more air and more life out of the sound. If you want the drier sound, the Canadian bronze is really where you want to go, because that's going to have, the crust is a much thicker level of crust, and so it's going to contain the sound a lot more. And with that, I have a couple of these Brazilian blank foundations. This is a 24-inch I've featured on some other videos. It's got a fully lathed bottom, and it has a lot of life to it. And then I have these two other ones that I showed you, and well, this one I didn't show you yet, but this is also a fully unlathed thing. And it's just a different thing, and I don't think one's better than the other. I tend to prefer the Brazilian stuff for the sound that I have in my head, but when I collaborated with Jonathan, it was very clear to see that he had a different approach, and his playing too is way different than mine, way beyond my playing in a lot of ways, and the way that he thinks is different. And so he's in a lot of ways looking for focused attack. He wants his cymbals to speak very clearly. He does not want his cymbals to get out of hand and run away from him. Whereas I kind of like cymbals that run away from me. And that has dictated how I play, because I'm allowing my cymbals, I factor in that they're going to run away from me a little bit, and I play them in a way that contains them, or I can let them go and let them just ring and sing for ages. So I'm not really all that afraid of a cymbal that's wild or a little out of control. And obviously Jonathan can control whatever cymbal he plays because he's that high level of a player. But for him and the style and his sound, his voice, he's looking for something that's really going to be controlled, that doesn't run away from him, but still has nuance, air, and complexity. So that's the update to the Foundation Series cymbals. Let's run through some of these things so you can hear some of the sounds that they have. All right, here we go. So we got the fully crusted cymbal that's just had some scratch lathing, and then we've got the more deeply lathed two over here. Then I'll swap them out and you'll hear the Brazilian stuff. So this is all Canadian, then we'll hear Brazilian next. Now for the Brazilian stuff, we got 222s, around 2,300 grams. This one's around 2,040, so crazy thin, pretty, I'd say thin. And then this 24 is around 3,000 grams, so medium thin. You'll definitely hear the difference in the vibe with these. All right, guys, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think of these cymbals and these sounds. And if you want to order a Foundation Series cymbal or a cymbal from any of my other series, you can go to reveriedrums.com. I have a Timothy Roberts cymbals category, and in that category is the batch drops that I do. I do a batch drop hopefully about every once a month or twice a month. I'm trying to get better about being more consistent on that. But you'll see any cymbals that are available in the shop ready to purchase, but you'll also see a commission form for hi-hats, crashes, and rides. And so you can order a commission, and all you got to do is go in there and pick the size you want, pick the series you want, and you can place the order. And then I'm in touch with all of the people that place orders, and we dial in more the sound you're going for, so we can talk about gram weights, we can talk about profile heights, bell style. I'm going to ask you about your stick selection, a lot of stuff about your playing, because the whole thing about making a commission is that I want to make a cymbal that you're going to love. So you can find all of that information at reveriedrums.com. In the meantime, subscribe, hit the bell if you want notifications, and keep an eye out for the next video. My name is Timothy Roberts. Thanks for watching.